The morning started with the sound of metal groaning, my garage door grinding open for the first time since I'd finally fixed it. After 2 weeks of it being jammed halfway, I was honestly proud. The sun cut through the slats, hitting the glossy white paint of my new car, a pre-owned Lexus I'd bought just 2 days ago. It wasn't fancy, but it was mine, and it felt like a reward for surviving a long year of chaos. Then came the screech. "Excuse me, what do you think you're doing?" The voice hit me like a warning siren. I turned and saw her, Karen, the HOA president. Matching visor, floral jogging outfit, clutching her phone like a badge of authority. Her little white dog trembled beside her as if even it knew what was coming. "I'm opening my garage," I said, half confused, half amused. She marched across my driveway like she owned it. "That's my car!" "Where did you get that Lexus?" I blinked. "You mean this one? The one I bought?" She squinted, her lips twitching like she was scanning for lies. "Don't you lie to me. That's the same model, the same color, even the same trim as the one that was delivered to me yesterday." I laughed, thinking she had to be joking. "You think I stole your car? Karen, come on." But she was already holding her phone up, voice rising. "I'm calling 911. You're stealing my brand new car right in front of me." I froze. The absurdity was almost cinematic, like one of those viral videos where everything spirals in slow motion. "Karen," I said, trying to stay calm. "I literally have the bill of sale inside." "Don't move!" She barked, stepping backward like I was about to make a getaway in my own driveway. "The police are on their way." Somewhere down the street, a neighbor peeked through their blinds. I heard a garage close quietly across the cul-de-sac. The universal suburban sign for not my problem. And that's when I realized this was about to get ugly. The police sirens started, faint, a distant wail cutting through the still morning air. Karen stood in my driveway like a self-appointed traffic cone, pacing with her phone still pressed to her ear. I could hear her muttering, "Yes, officer, he's right here. Yes, the suspect is still in possession of the vehicle." I wasn't sure whether to laugh or record this for insurance purposes. Instead, I leaned against the car and checked my watch. It had been 3 minutes. 3 minutes since I opened my garage, and somehow I was already a criminal in the eyes of my HOA president. When the cruiser rolled up, the relief I felt was immediately replaced by dread. 2 officers stepped out, one older, one younger. The older one looked like he'd seen this kind of neighborhood drama before. The younger one looked like he still believed every call mattered. Karen rushed forward before they could even shut their doors. "Officers, thank goodness. That man," she pointed dramatically at me, "stole my brand new Lexus. I have the paperwork to prove it was delivered yesterday." The older cop raised an eyebrow. "Ma'am, you're saying he stole your vehicle from his own garage?" "Yes, exactly. He's hiding it in plain sight." The younger cop turned to me, clearly trying not to smirk. "Sir, can we talk to you for a second?" "Sure," I said. "But before we go any further, I have my bill of sale, insurance, and registration inside. Bought it used from a dealership 2 days ago." Karen gasped like I'd confessed. "See? He just said he bought it. That's what thieves say when they flip VIN numbers." The older officer sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose. "Ma'am, please let us handle this." I led them into my garage. One of the officers inspected the license plate while I fetched the folder from my kitchen counter. The paperwork was pristine. Dealership logo, my name, everything. When I handed it over, the younger cop nodded. "Everything checks out." But Karen wasn't done. Her voice sliced through the silence. No, you don't understand. Mine was delivered yesterday. Someone must have switched it. This is an inside job." The older officer turned to me with a look that said, "I'm sorry you live here." I didn't realize then. This was only the beginning. The officers tried to calm her down, but Karen wasn't having it. She stormed closer, pointing at the hood like a detective in a bad cop show. "Check the VIN, check it. That's the same number as mine, I'm telling you." The older cop sighed. "Ma'am, we'll run the VIN, but please step back." She crossed her arms and huffed, muttering something about neighborhood security and how no one respects the HOA anymore. Meanwhile, I stood there, arms folded, trying to look as innocent as a guy can look, when his morning coffee's still on the counter and a police cruiser is blocking his driveway. The younger officer leaned over the windshield and read off the VIN, then typed it into his tablet. The pause that followed was painfully long. Karen's eyes darted between him, me and the car like she was waiting for her big aha moment. Finally, the officer said, "This vehicle is registered to Mr. Daniel Harper. Purchased 2 days ago. No reports of theft." I smiled politely. "That would be me." Karen blinked, then recovered. No, that can't be right. That's my name on the HOA file. My husband's name is Daniel too. You must have mixed them up." I stared at her. Ma'am, unless your husband and I share the same birthday, address and social security number, I think you might be stretching it. She gasped like I'd cursed in church. How dare you? You think I don't know my own husband's car? The older cop stepped in before it escalated further. Ma'am, your vehicle might have a similar make and colour, but this one clearly belongs to Mr. Harper here. Why don't you check your driveway to make sure yours is still where you left it? Karen hesitated. Her eyes darted back toward her house just 2 doors down. For a second, I thought logic might finally win. She turned, stomped away with a flurry of indignation, and disappeared around the corner. The silence that followed was almost peaceful, until 30 seconds later we heard it. Her scream. "Where's my car?" The officers exchanged glances. I blinked, genuinely unsure whether to laugh or lock my doors. The younger cop sighed. "Sir, you might want to come with us." We walked down the street toward Karen's house, a parade of disbelief led by chaos itself. Her voice echoed across the cul-de-sac. "It was right here. I parked it here last night." Her driveway was empty, completely glaringly empty. The concrete gleamed under the morning sun, spotless, except for a faint oil spot where a car had been. The younger officer glanced at the older one. "Well, that changes things." Karen spun toward me, wild-eyed. You moved it, didn't you? You took mine and brought a fake one to trick the police." I almost laughed, but the look in her eyes wasn't funny. It was the kind of panicked conviction you couldn't reason with. She believed it. "Karen," I said slowly, "I've been standing in my driveway since you called the cops. I haven't moved anything." "Lies!" she shrieked. "You probably have some accomplice. Someone from that shady repair truck that was here last week." The older cop raised his hand, calm but firm. "Ma'am, we'll need to file a report. If your car really was stolen, that's a separate case. But right now we've confirmed this man didn't take it." She stared at him, shaking her head. "No, you don't understand. He had motive. He hates me because of the HOA fine I gave him for his trash cans." I blinked. "That was 3 months ago. You fined me $50 because my cans were visible for 10 minutes. Karen jabbed a finger toward me. "Exactly. Revenge." The younger officer muttered under his breath. "Revenge by VIN swapping. That's a new one." I looked at him. "Can I go home now, or am I a witness in this fever dream?" Before he could answer, the older cop's radio crackled. "Unit 3, be advised. Possible matching Lexus found 2 blocks over. Abandoned, driver's door ajar." Karen gasped. "See?" He dumped it there after he switched them. The officer gave me a look that said, "Don't even bother responding." Karen grabbed her visor, straightened her shirt, and announced dramatically, "I'm coming with you." "That's my car." The older cop sighed deeply. "Fine, ma'am, but please stay calm." I stayed on the curb, half curious, half exhausted. As their cruiser pulled away, Karen's glare stayed, fixed on me through the window like a movie villain swearing vengeance. I didn't know it yet, but this mess was far from over. It was about 40 minutes before I saw the flashing lights again. The cruiser rolled back into the cul-de-sac, sunlight glinting off the windshield. I'd spent the entire time pacing my driveway, still trying to make sense of it all. The passenger door opened, and there she was, Karen, looking both triumphant and furious at the same time. Her car apparently had been found. The younger officer followed her out, looking like he regretted his entire career choice. "Ma'am," he said, "we confirmed the vehicle at that location is yours. It wasn't stolen. Looks like your husband parked it there last night after coming back from the HOA board meeting." Karen froze. "That's not possible. He said he took the golf cart." The officer scrolled through his notes. "According to your husband, he moved the car because someone left their sprinkler on and didn't want water spots on the paint." I tried not to snort. Ah, yes, the ultimate crime. Karen turned to me, face flushed red, voice trembling between outrage and embarrassment. "So, you're telling me I called the police on my neighbor for having his own car?" The older officer closed his notebook. "That's exactly what happened, Mum." For a long moment, the world was silent, except for the gentle buzz of a distant lawnmower. Karen stood there, visor tilted slightly askew, her pride visibly crumbling in real time. Finally, she took a deep breath and said, "Well, in my defense, it did look suspicious." I folded my arms. "You mean me, opening my own garage?" She hesitated. "You opened it very aggressively." The younger cop coughed into his hand, hiding a laugh. "Mom, you might want to apologize to your neighbor." Karen looked at me like she'd rather chew glass. "I apologize for any misunderstanding." Her tone made it sound less like an apology and more like a hostage negotiation. "Thanks," I said dryly. "Next time, maybe skip the 911 part." The officers nodded politely and left, probably eager to get far away from HOA politics. Karen turned on her heel and marched home, her little dog trotting after her. I thought that was the end of it. But the next morning, when I opened my mailbox, there it was, an official-looking HOA envelope addressed to me. Inside, a single page read, "Notice of violation, unauthorized vehicle color discrepancy. Please repaint or replace vehicle to comply with neighborhood aesthetic standards." I laughed out loud. Then quietly, I realized, this war wasn't over. I stared at that letter like it was a prank. Unauthorized vehicle color discrepancy? My car was silver. Every car on this street was silver. It was like living in a metallic dystopia. I walked outside, holding the letter like it was radioactive. Across the street, Karen was watering her front lawn, hose in one hand, fake smile ready, like she'd been waiting for me to see it. "Morning," she called out, her voice syrupy sweet. "Get your notice?" "Yeah," I said. "Funny thing, I didn't realize cars had to match HOA-approved shades." She blinked innocently. "Oh, it's just a little bylaw update. We voted on it last night. Nothing personal." "Right," I said. "You voted to regulate car colors. The day after you accused me of Grand Theft Auto." Karen's smile tightened. "We're just trying to preserve property values. You understand." I wanted to laugh, but honestly I was too tired. "Karen, you literally drive the same model car, the same color." "Exactly," she chirped, which is why having two of them confuses the neighborhood. I had to pause to process that level of logic. "So you want me to repaint my car?" She nodded like she was offering me a great deal. "Or replace it. Maybe a neutral beige, something less." She waved her hand vaguely. "Competitive." Before I could reply, my neighbor from next door, Tony, walked over. He'd clearly been listening, mug of coffee in hand, smirk on his face. "Morning, Dan. Morning, Karen. What's the HOA drama of the day?" Karen turned sharply. "Nothing you need to worry about, Tony." He sipped his coffee. "Oh, I'm worried. You remember when you fined me for having the wrong shade of mulch? I still have PTSD every time I walk past the garden aisle." Karen's jaw tightened. "Rules maintain order." Tony leaned toward me. "You should show that letter to your lawyer, buddy." "What's his name?" "The one who helped me fight my mailbox height infraction." Karen's hose slipped slightly, spraying her shoes. Her expression cracked just a bit. "You wouldn't." Tony grinned. "Oh, he would." I smiled. "Yeah, I think I just might." Karen tried to hold her composure, but her dog's bark broke the silence and she finally muttered, "You'll regret this." Then she stormed inside, door slamming like punctuation. Tony looked at me. "Man, she's gunning for you." I nodded, slipping the letter back into the envelope. Then it's time I aimed back. The next day, I took Tony's advice. I scanned the HOA bylaws, all 56 pages of them, and highlighted every ridiculous clause that could be used against itself. By page 8, I realized something incredible. Karen had been breaking more rules than anyone else in the neighborhood. Unapproved garden decor, unauthorized seasonal flags, and, my favorite, non-compliant mailbox. Embellishment. Her mailbox had a little ceramic owl on top, technically a wildlife deterrent ornament, but not one approved by the HOA. The irony was too delicious to ignore. I made copies of the violations, filled out official HOA complaint forms, available right on the website, and slipped them anonymously into the Dropbox by the community clubhouse. I wasn't trying to be vindictive, okay, maybe a little, but this was about balance, fairness, self-defense by paperwork. 2 days later, at 8:14 a.m., I heard it. Karen's voice again, shrill, furious, echoing down the cul-de-sac. Who filed this complaint? I peeked through my blinds. She stood by her mailbox, waving a stack of printed forms like evidence at a trial. Tony, watering his plants, called out casually, "Rough morning." She glared at him. "This is harassment. Somebody's trying to weaponize the HOA system." Tony shrugged. "You don't say." She looked around the street, eyes scanning every driveway until they locked on mine. For a moment, I thought she might combust on the spot. Then, she marched up my walkway and pounded on my door. I opened it just enough to lean out. "Morning, Karen. Everything okay?" Her eyes narrowed. "Don't play innocent. I know it was you." "Know what was me?" She held up one of the forms. This nonsense about my mailbox owl being non-compliant. It's been there for years. I shrugged. "Rules maintain order. You understand." Her jaw dropped. "You think this is funny? I could have you fined." "Already been there, remember?" I smiled faintly. $50 for trash cans. She stepped back, trembling with indignation. "You're going to regret this, Daniel Harper. I run this HOA." And with that, she stormed off again, muttering something about disciplinary hearings. Tony strolled over a minute later, chuckling. "You poked the hornet's nest, man." I sighed. "Yeah, and I think the hornet just called an emergency meeting." Sure enough, by sunset, a notice appeared on my door. Mandatory HOA review, attendance required. Possible revocation of community privileges. I laughed softly to myself. Here we go again. The HOA review meeting was set for Thursday evening, 6 p.m. in the community clubhouse, that overly air-conditioned beige room where suburban dreams go to die. I walked in with a folder under my arm and the calm resignation of someone who'd already lived through a public execution once this week. The long oak table was already half full. Karen sat at the head, gavel in hand like she was auditioning for Judge Judy, Neighborhood Edition. The rest of the board members looked like they'd rather be anywhere else, except for Stan, the treasurer, who looked genuinely excited for drama. Karen tapped her gavel twice. This meeting is now in session. Our first and only agenda item, resident Daniel Harper, and his repeated violations of community harmony. I raised an eyebrow. Harmony? She flipped through a stack of papers. You've exhibited hostile behavior toward the HOA, spread false complaints, and brought unnecessary police attention to our peaceful neighborhood. Technically, I said, you brought the police attention. I was just opening my garage. A murmur ran through the room. Stan tried to hide a laugh behind his coffee cup. Karen glared. Order, please. This is a serious matter. Mr. Harper, do you deny filing false reports against board members? I set my folder on the table and opened it. I deny they're false. In fact, I brought proof. I slid the papers across the table, printouts of HOA regulations, with photos attached, her owl mailbox topper, the unapproved seasonal banner, even the time-stamped image of her illegal second mailbox light fixture. Karen's eyes flicked over them, color draining from her face. This is irrelevant! Stan leaned over. Actually, those are legitimate violations, Karen. The secretary, an older woman named Marlene, adjusted her glasses. Page 14, subsection D, clearly states all exterior decor must be approved by majority vote. You wrote that rule. Karen's jaw tightened. Well, exceptions can be made. I leaned back in my chair. Seems selective enforcement violates section 2B of the HOA charter. Equal application of all bylaws, right? For once, the room wasn't with her. Marlene sighed. Karen, maybe we should let this one go. The man hasn't done anything wrong. Stan chuckled. If anything, he's done your job better than you. The vote was quick, 4-1. Karen was overruled. Her face went red, but she forced a tight smile. Fine, Mr. Harper, you're cleared. But I assure you, this isn't the end. I stood. You've been saying that a lot lately. As I walked out of the clubhouse, I could still hear her muttering, her voice dripping with fury. He thinks he's clever. He'll slip up. I didn't know it yet, but she was already planning her next move. And this time, she wasn't coming with bylaws. She was coming with proof. Or at least what she thought was proof. It started subtly. At first, I noticed little things. The glint of a camera in her window when I watered my plants. The faint sound of a car door shutting across the street when I left for groceries. Then came the note, taped to my mailbox. Small, handwritten in Karen's unmistakable scrawl. For your safety, the HOA is now monitoring all community entrances. Smile. I stared at it, half amused, half terrified. Surveillance? Seriously? That evening, I decided to test it. I pulled into my garage, waved at the corner of her window, and made exaggerated motions of lifting imaginary objects out of my trunk. Sure enough, a flash reflected back. Camera or phone, I couldn't tell. The next morning, as I stepped outside with coffee, I spotted her SUV across the street. She was parked illegally in the visitor spot, binoculars pressed to her eyes. The dog sat beside her, looking innocent, but I swear it was judging me. Tony leaned over the fence, grinning. She's really losing it. I'm beginning to think she's auditioning for a reality show, I muttered. Karen's voice carried across the lawn. I know what you did last night. I froze. Did what? She waved her arms like a conductor. The garage lights. You moved something. Suspiciously, I held up my hands. Karen, it was my trash. I took it out. She narrowed her eyes. Lies, don't play dumb. I've got proof. I stepped back and squinted at the window across the street. One of her neighbors, probably coerced or bribed, was filming me, phone shaking like it was recording a viral drama clip. Tony leaned closer. You should probably respond before she uploads it to the HOA Facebook page. I rubbed my temples. Or maybe just let her think she's got me. Karma has better timing anyway. The rest of the morning was spent tiptoeing like a character in a spy film. Every delivery driver, every jogger, even the mailman became a potential witness in her imaginary narrative. By noon, the tension was unbearable. I peeked outside and saw Karen marching down the street, clipboard in hand, a scowl etched permanently across her face. She was rallying support, Neighbors whispered from their porches. Lawnmowers stopped mid-cut. Birds flew from trees in alarm. She was about to escalate again. And this time, it wasn't about cars, bylaws, or invoices. It was personal. By Friday evening, the neighborhood was on edge. I could feel it the moment I stepped outside. An almost theatrical tension in the air, like everyone was waiting for the next act of some suburban opera. Karen was already at the cul-de-sac, clipboard in hand, pacing like a general preparing for battle. Tony leaned over the fence, shaking his head. "You really should have moved out last week." "I think I like the drama too much," I muttered, though my stomach churned. Karen spotted me and froze mid-step. Her gaze sharpened, narrowing until I could see the anger glinting like sunlight on glass. "Daniel Harper!" she barked. "This ends tonight." I raised a hand casually, trying not to show that my pulse had doubled. "Karen, you do realize I'm just living my life? You called the police, you filed complaints, and now you're doing this?" Her lips twisted into a grin that was almost insane. "Doing this is called enforcing justice. For the community. And you, sir, have tested my patience for the last time." Then she whipped out her phone and started filming. I realized she planned to upload this, whatever this was, to the HOA Facebook page for maximum humiliation. I exhaled slowly. It was time to end it. "Karen," I said, stepping closer. "You want drama? Fine, let's do this the civilized way." She blinked. "Civilized?" I pulled out my own phone. "I've been documenting everything. Your violations, your antics, the police visit, the 911 call, the false accusations. It's all here, time-stamped, ready to go to the HOA board, the police, or literally anyone who cares about facts." Her confident grin faltered. You can't. You're bluffing." I held my phone up. "Try me." The silence was cinematic. Even her dog seemed to sense that the scales had tipped. The neighbors peeked out from behind curtains, whispering, some stifling laughter. Finally, Karen's shoulders slumped. Her voice dropped to a whisper. This isn't over," I smirked. "You've said that before." She stomped off toward her house, phone still in hand, muttering threats to herself. The HOA and maybe the universe. The clipboard fell to the grass with a thud. Like the final punctuation mark of her tantrum, Tony came over, chuckling. "Well, you survived?" I leaned against my car, exhausted but victorious. "Yeah, for now. But something tells me Karen's saga has only just begun." The camera pans over the cul-de-sac. Quiet again, except for the distant buzz of lawnmowers and the faint bark of a dog. And somewhere, behind closed blinds, Karen is already plotting her next move. If you felt the tension, hit like. Standing up against nonsense starts with one small act. Subscribe to Karenverse to catch every story of ordinary people reclaiming their power. And tell me in the comments, how would you handle a Karen blowing up your life?